Good evening and welcome. My name is Ed Potasnik. I'm Executive Director of the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. And we represent Democrats, we represent Republicans, and we represent independent voters who care deeply about their environment, around clean, healthy drinking water, their lands, so that our future generations have a place in the most densely populated state to play and enjoy, and also air. So folks don't have to get cancer just for breathing, or asthma, where they need an inhaler just so they can walk across a classroom or from their house to the store or anywhere they want to go. And unfortunately, we live in a place right now where our air quality, our water quality, and our land are under attack. And we're here to talk a little bit to make sure that the community fully understands what's at stake just around the corner. I just want to take a moment to thank our amazing partner organizations that are here today to say no to an unnecessary fossil fuel project here in New Jersey, right here in Branchburg. The Williams Transco company, one that I'm very familiar with, filed permits for the Regional Energy Access Expansion Project in March of 2021. The project consists of the expansion of fossil fuel compressor stations in Branchburg and Old Bridge, and the construction of a completely new compressor station in West Deptford and one in Old Bridge. The project would increase the volume and the speed of gas transported through their existing pipeline network. And I just want to say we oppose this project because it's unneeded, it'll harm our health and our environment, it's dangerous, and it'll move us, importantly, a really important characterization away from our clean energy future, one that is increasingly coming into our sightline here in New Jersey, thanks to the leadership of Governor Murphy and the New Jersey legislature. This project would add over 16 million metric tons of carbon dioxide, equivalent greenhouse gases per year. That's approximately 16% increase in our state's total emission. This one project alone, our greenhouse gas emissions would go up 16%. And that's in direct conflict with the goals that we have in New Jersey of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030. So as they say, one step forward, one step back. Well, this is one major step backwards. It's going to be nearly impossible to step forwards in the direction we need to go to protect our health, our environment, and our air. Like pipelines, compressor stations are vulnerable to leaks and disasters, including fires and explosions. Small towns like Branchburg should not have to budget to bear the responsibility for constant emergency preparedness needed when you live near a compressor station, potentially one step away from a major disaster. In fact, many of us know this, but it's important for the public to know. The existing compressor station that is here in Branchburg had exploded in 2013, less than 10 years ago, and injured 13 people. 2 of them were seriously injured. So this isn't hypothetical. This isn't about us just coming out here and saying, oh, this could be bad. 13 people were injured by the existing compressor station, 2 severely injured. These projects are dangerous, they're unnecessary, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and they're a move in the wrong direction. In addition to emergencies, as I mentioned, there are potential health impacts from regular operation, which can include difficulty breathing, asthma exacerbation, high blood pressure, and headaches. The long-term health effects could also include heart attacks, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and cancer. Not to mention that these stations are also a nuisance because they operate 24/7, generating noise and light pollution for surrounding communities. And just to give you a sense of why the toxins in the air are so bad, everyone knows you can't park a car in your garage, right? Because if you do, you're going to die. Because the emissions coming out of that tailpipe literally kill you. A compressor station running on that same natural gas has similar emissions. They go out into the air and they get diffused, but they are also toxic. You have all kinds of carcinogens, benzene, and other things that we know are no good coming out of the natural gas in that emissions. But the bigger thing, too, to think about is, it's like kind of a story in a way, but when you go get your propane tank filled, you take it in your car and you go to the place. A lot of people exchange them now, but if you were in the old days, you go to the place and They hook it up and they fill it up, and when they're done, there's this little hose from the propane tank to the little propane tank to the big propane tank. And to get the gas that's in there from when they shut off this valve to they shut off that valve, they release it. And you've probably seen this white cloud of dust. They don't park smoke. Don't park your car here. Flammable, hazard. Okay? That would, in the world of compressor stations, they call that a blowdown. They got all this equipment filled with this very compressed gas, tons of it. I mean, not literally tons, but a lot. Okay? And they have to do maintenance. They have to shut off some valves. So when they do, all that gas escapes. It's called fugitive emissions. It's methane and all kinds of other things that are highly potent greenhouse gases, but are toxic. They're explosive. And these blowdowns are a common occurrence, just like filling up a propane tank in these compressor stations. So they're a real problem. And on top of all these risks, there was a recent report from the Board of Public Utilities that deemed that this project, REAE, was unnecessary to meet demand, and we agree. We don't need this project. So I just want to thank the BPU for coming out with a public statement to say that we don't need this project. It's a big statement, it's an important statement. A lot of times, folks from the environmental community and advocates, we say it's unneeded, and we do our own research to show that it's unneeded, but to have a state agency say this project is unneeded, for all the reasons that I listed, the health, the danger, the long-term implication where we get addicted to more fossil fuels, and the problems with climate change, to have the agency say that it's also unneeded is a really big step. And that means it should be rejected, the air permits that are here today, which is something I think we all could agree to. Why are we taking risks to our health, public safety, and our climate, and moving away from goals for a project that we don't even need? So we've also sent a letter today to Governor Murphy and the DEP with 75 signatories across diverse interests, including the medical community, business interests, students, justice activists, environmental activists, labor partners, and we're all going together to reject the REAE project. So say it with me. Reject this project. Reject this project. So now I want to introduce our partners who are here with us this evening, who will tell you more about why the project and this expansion proposal is bad for Branchburg, it's bad for New Jersey, and it's bad for the world's climate. First, we're going to have Melanie Morano, who currently is serving as Somerset County Commissioner, Deputy Director, speaking as a Somerset County resident, and we're going to be followed by Taylor Mcfarlane of the Sierra Club here in New Jersey, and then Matt Smith of Food and Water Watch. So I'm going to turn it over to my dear friend and a great advocate for clean drinking water, open spaces, and quality air, my friend Melanie Morano. On my left.
Thank you, Ed, and thanks to the League and your partners for putting this event together to help us raise awareness to Transco's problematic application. As Ed said, I am Melanie Morano. I'm the Deputy Director of the Somerset County Board of Commissioners. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak today regarding the expansion of Transco's compressor station in Branchburg, Somerset County, and its negative impact on our community. In a scenic, bucolic neighborhood, just a short ride off Route 202, State Highway, near the headwaters of the Raritan River, a block from Somerset County's award-winning, prestigious Neshannock Valley Golf Course, sits the Transco natural gas transmission line compressor station that for years has polluted the area with particulates and noise. Just 9 years ago, this same compressor was the scene of an accident that resulted in 13 people injured. Branchburg volunteer fire department was called to the scene and fortunately were able to quell this fire. But what if they weren't? Even today, this original compressor spews air and noise pollution into Somerset County's atmosphere with harmful byproducts, including carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, formaldehyde, and other particulates which are known carcinogens, dangerous to heart and lungs, and contribute to greenhouse gases. Right next to family homes and a public golf course. Now Transco thinks it's a good idea and they want to increase capacity in those lines and expand the compressor station in this quaint residential and recreational neighborhood. Now we know Transco has a spotty safety record. They have 69 significant accidents on their pipelines since 1998 and more than 3 every year, including the fire right here in Somerset County in Branchburg in 2013. Now imagine if the capacity were greater in 2013. How much worse could this situation have been to people, homes, a state highway, golf course, farms, and the Raritan River? Imagine if there's a fire in 2023 if this project goes through. And with more gas flow comes more pollution, increases in sulfur dioxide and particulate matter, and more noise. And why do they need to increase the flow of the natural gas? The state of New Jersey's Board of Public Utilities has determined that New Jersey has enough gas to meet its current and future demands. So the compressor that will pollute and endanger our local community is being expanded to serve residents of other states? I'm not quite sure on that one. I stand today to express my deep concerns for the health and safety of Somerset County's residents, golfers, businesses, farms, visitors, and most importantly, our overall environment from the expansion of this compressor station, and urge the local community to educate themselves about Transco and their new compressor station, and then NJDEP to listen to the community during their review process. I thank you very much, and I turn it back to Ed.
Awesome, thank you, Melanie. Next up is Taylor Mcfarlane from New Jersey Sierra Club.
Thanks, Ed. Hi, everybody. My name is Taylor Mcfarlane. I'm the Conservation Program Manager for Sierra Club New Jersey chapter. I'm also representing our national base because remember that this is a multi-state project. So on behalf of Sierra Club and approximately 3.8 million of its members and supporters across the nation, we ask that New Jersey DEP reject the Title V air permit for this Transco project. This fossil fuel project will, like Ed said, exacerbate climate change and impact the safety of health and well-being of communities and the environment in New Jersey. Transco goes against New Jersey's commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address climate impacts. New Jersey is committed to 80% reductions in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 and 50% reductions by 2030. However, this expansion alone will bring an increase of 6,635 tons per year of CO2 equivalent to a facility total of 94,046 tons per year of CO2 equivalent. Of those emissions, 223 tons per year are methane emissions, a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. So the expansion of fossil fuel projects like the Transco compressor station will increase the state's greenhouse gas emissions and consequently make it more difficult to advance clean energy investments and for New Jersey to meet its greenhouse gas emission commitments. In addition, as Ed mentioned, these compressor stations would bring in more noise, light, air, and water pollution to the area. Emissions from the compressor would include hundreds of tons per year of carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, formaldehyde, particulate matter, VOCs, and other hazardous pollutants. These pollutants are a danger to public health. Additionally, the construction and operation of this station would potentially create water pollution and contaminate drinking water in the region because of the use of hazardous chemicals and runoff from construction that could impact groundwater. Williams' unneeded fossil fuel project will threaten the health of our public and the environment. It will increase more greenhouse gases, exacerbate the impacts of climate change, and it's critical for DEP to consider these disastrous impacts that the DREAE project will have and reject it. So I ask you, say no to Transco. Thank you. I'll give it over to Ed.
Amazing. Next up is Matt Smith, a dear friend and also a colleague and partner at Food and Water Watch, who has been really killing projects like this across the state, which we should be very proud of.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks, everyone, for being here. To quote a wise old Jewish man from Brooklyn, it's definitely not me, it's us. As a movement, we have stopped several high-profile fossil fuel projects, including the Meadowlands Power Plant, the Pennies Pipeline, and another Williams Transco project. And in fact, I'm standing next to two of the lead pipeline slayers who helped defeat the Williams-Nessie pipeline, Linda Powell and Bernadette Marr. We need the governor to use his same authority to stop this project, for all the reasons that the speakers before me have said, but also for the reasons that Commissioner LaTourette stated in his testimony this morning at the Senate Environment Committee hearing in Toms River, when he said, I quote, "Climate change is the single greatest threat to our communities, our economies, and our way of life in New Jersey. We must make faster and more serious changes to reduce emissions of climate pollutants." Yet here we are just a few hours later, and we're standing here outside a hearing on a draft permit for a massive expansion of a fossil fuel pipeline that life cycle would contribute up to 18 million metric tons of additional CO2 equivalent pollution annually. This is unnecessary. Governor Murphy and Commissioner LaTourette, actions speak louder than words. We need you to use your authority to deny this permit. We also need the DEP to go back to the drawing board. These Title V air permits give DEP broad authority to conduct alternatives assessments and public needs assessment. You'll see none of that was conducted in this draft permit that we're holding a hearing on today. DEP should scrap this entire process, go back to the drawing board, do what our neighbors in New York did with that Nessie pipeline, do the alternatives assessments, find out what are the non-pipeline alternatives to meet New Jersey's energy demand. I mean, first of all, as Ed said and other speakers said, the BPU, the Board of Public Utilities in New Jersey, has already said this pipeline is not needed. Yet, the NJDEP is moving forward on a draft permit without doing that alternatives assessment. So we need DEP to look at the non-pipeline alternatives for this project. We're also here at a time when climate change and the climate crisis becomes more severe, and the urgency with which we need to act becomes more clear every day. Branchburg, New Jersey, and Somerset County at large were among the most devastated communities by Superstorm Ida, a storm that scientists conclude was fueled and made worse and more fierce and more destructive by the escalating climate crisis. That one storm cost over $95 billion in property destruction and economic damage, part of the $1.3 trillion annually that is caused by destructive weather events. Yet Governor Murphy's DEP continues permitting new fossil fuel projects. They've already permitted 6 new projects since the governor has taken office, and those 6 projects total about 19 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent. They have the capacity to produce that amount of greenhouse gases. That includes dirty, dangerous, and unnecessary gas pipelines through the Pinelands, as well as a series of gas compressor stations all over the state. We need real action from the governor, not just words. Residents in Branchburg, we've canvassed, we've knocked on doors, we've talked to neighbors who live near this existing facility. They're already smelling gas, their kids are suffering from headaches. It's not always okay to go outside when there's a compressor station that you live right next door to. And here we are, we're not talking about addressing the leaks, addressing the problems with the existing infrastructure. We're talking about a corporation's plans to profit off of expanding it, putting even more gas at higher speeds through an aging pipeline that goes near residences, schools, hospitals. When is enough enough? Compressor stations, as was said, are a major threat to public safety. This company, Williams Transco, has a terrible record. Their facilities, including compressor stations, have exploded and or caught fire 10 times in the past decade. 5 other explosions and or fires have occurred at other Williams natural gas facilities, and these total incidents have killed 6 people and injured 102 others. The Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration, the EPA, and OSHA have repeatedly levied civil penalties against Williams for neglecting procedures that accord with federal safety standards. Yet, Again, the NJDEP fails to use its authority to regulate or monitor fugitive emissions. These are the emissions that occur on a regular basis or when planned or emergency blowdowns take place, when all of the gas that's compressed in that facility and in the pipeline is released into the nearby community. This happened on New Year's Day in a similar facility up in Wantage, New Jersey. The methane plume traveled 20 miles. Residents became sick with headaches and nausea. To this day, the pipeline company hasn't accepted responsibility for that. In 2019, I mentioned some of the folks here led the fight to stop that Williams-Nessie pipeline, and a compressor station very similar proposed in Franklin Township. And I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, and Williams, one of the reasons why we were able to stop that project is Williams forgot, we'll plant a massive petro facility, natural gas compressor station, but didn't even think to have nearby fire hydrants or enough water pressure going to the facility to put out a fire. Our first responders in the area are not equipped, nor should they be expected to respond to a major fire at a gas compressor station, especially when the renewable economy is already here and flourishing in New Jersey and the United States and countries around the world. We have the alternatives to meet any energy demand that we actually do need. We can use things like offshore wind, community solar, geothermal, heat pumps, energy efficiency retrofits, composting and biodigestion, electric vehicles, public transportation, and so much more. Every dollar invested in renewable energy creates 7 times the amount of jobs and economic development as it does as the same dollar invested in fossil fuels. So as we've said, Governor Murphy has the authority to deny, and his NJDEP has the authority to deny this permit. They need to stop this project. They need to stop the 6 other major fossil fuel expansion projects that are proposed in the state of New Jersey. And we're here to say that. So to quote Taylor from Sierra Club, just say no to Transco. Governor Murphy, just say no to Transco. Governor Murphy, just say no to Transco. Thank you all. Let's go inside and let's sign up to comments so the DEP can hear us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there are some members of the press here. I don't know if there are any questions, particularly from the podium for any of the speakers. You good, Mike? Just remember, in addition to the ability for this project to be denied for all the reasons that we heard, climate change is a big one of those. In the life of your 30-year mortgage, you can expect a 100-year storm. And projects like this will only speed up the time frame from which you go from a dry basement to a house that is wet. A business that can be visited to a business that's closed for renovation. And we can do something about it right here today, and that's what we're here to do. We're gonna march into that building, we're gonna share our personal experiences, and we're gonna hope, because they're gonna do the right thing, that the DEP and the governor are gonna be on our side to reject this project, because it's the right thing to do for us and our children. So let's get it done. Good job, everyone.